Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Graham Noble, Andrew Moran, Scott Cosenza, and Joe Schaefer. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, Kindergarten Madness and more, the Conservative Five discusses a new abolitionist curricula, woke kindergarten insanity. We'll also dig into the latest Joe Bidenspeak, can you say shrinkflation? And pivot to what's on everyone's mind. Her and him, Biden's memory is shot. We are back at it again in Just for Fun, Volume 46. All this and more coming up in this edition of the Conservative Five.
Mass hysteria!
One struggling school district in California spent $250,000 in a for-profit organization that instructs teachers how to influence kindergarten children to be woke, as promised in its propaganda publications, to disrupt whiteness. How that assists children with literacy or numeracy concerns parents and teachers alike, as the 3-year program has introduced an all-new low in test scores, assigning the philosophy of abolitionist education. Woke kindergarten, the business, is not shy in proclaiming its overall mission: radicalize. So, the young revolutionaries are set on the path to societal upheaval and radical progressive politics, but not necessarily the road to the 3 R's. The school district in question, Hayward Unified, located in the San Francisco Bay Area, is now reeling from plummeting scores in math and language arts, the lowest they've ever had. Joe, please give us a rundown on this whole mess.
I think the best way to give a rundown is to quote your excellent article that you wrote on this subject. I'll just give some of the highlights. I thought the lead sentence: one struggling school district in California invested $250,000 in a for-profit organization that instructs teachers how to influence kindergarten children to be woke in order to, quote, disrupt whiteness, end quote. And then you have another telling quote about, I guess, from the organization, yes, proclaiming its overall mission, quote, woke kindergarten is a global abolitionist early childhood ecosystem and visionary creative portal supporting children, families, educators, and organizations in their commitment to abolitionist early education and pro-Black and queer and trans liberation, end quote. That's a lot for a kindergarten taught to
That's a lot for anybody I can't hardly stomach that.
I mean, this is the craziness going on in our public schools today, especially in the blue states. It's just madness. They actually called it, I saw somewhere else, they had a little comrades program. So you send your kindergarten and child to school and they get to be a little comrade. I mean, that's communist indoctrination. We're not being conspiracy theorists here. We're not making it up when they're calling it little comrades. So, this is, again, the tolerance hoax, that's a good word to describe it, being taken to absurd limits. It's time for some intolerance. You don't tolerate the warping of young minds like this. That has nothing to do with any proper use of the word tolerant. So we need some intolerance in America. And again, this is how they play the game. It's tolerance up to the point where, while they're in the minority, when they don't have the power. When they have the power, it's about disrupting whiteness. It's about destroying nationalism and American patriotism as these evil things. All these intolerant things all of a sudden become important to the people who champion tolerance on their way up to assuming this power. Well, they've got this power now in our schools, and look what they're doing. It's absolutely insane.
I found it interesting when I was writing the article and doing some research. Some smaller local papers up in the Bay Area, I was reading, all of a sudden this teacher, can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was a self-described gay moderate, and he asked, they come in and they bring trainers to teach these teachers how to do this program. And he asked what exactly defined disrupt whiteness. And he was also a little disturbed by the language of so-called United States. And he's now on leave. Scott, what did he think was going to happen? Because he was a gay moderate and he could stick around?
Well, inflation isn't only affecting money and the U.S. dollar, but it also affects victimhood kind of bona fides. It used to be that a gay man in the United States was atop the victimhood mountain, and he could expect not to get fired over comments that went against the grain. But now, I guess you have to be maybe a trans woman of color. That's still where we are.
And a communist, apparently.
They can still say whatever they want, no matter what, and not get fired. But I suspect that's what it is. Probably a mostly Caucasoidal type, and it's just the, in the world today, being gay is no longer
It's not cool.
getting your free speech rights are still removed. But I wanted to get back very quickly to what Joe said about what we need is intolerance to these ideas, and I would just hasten to add what we need is separation of school and state. The problem here is that we have government schools that are taking money and children from people and instilling these disgusting ideas into them. And people are free to instill their own disgusting ideas into their children if they choose. The odious part comes when they steal the money and the children, and do it to other people's children. And all people can fix this if they just demand that we separate school and state, both from the conservatives who liberals wish to not have their kids indoctrinated with, pro-military USA messages or anti-abortion or whatever it might be. And then the opposite, we can be free from all these impositions on our children. Just go ahead and separate school and state and let, school's too important to leave to the government, right? I mean,
yes. We have one panelist today, Andrew, who's a parent, has school-age kids. Tell me about what happens when your kids come home and say, "Dad, guess what the woke spelling word of the day is?" And it's some crazy thing. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, Canada's way more liberal than we are.
Well, we're fortunate because our kids are in private school. They're not revealed to this kind of nonsense as much as the government school kids are, but they still have to follow some of the mandates from the government education system. Otherwise, they get shut down. But overall, you still see this stuff in private schools all over our neighborhood. You need a separation of school and state. When you have government educations, not only are they instilling this propaganda, they're making them stupider. I mean, you look at all of the grades, whether in the United States or Canada, and it's been just on a downward trend because they focus on all these things except the very basics of reading, writing, and math. And, I may go on a tangent here, but this all stems from the idea of play-based learning, where you have to play in order to learn, and all this stuff that's proven not to be effective. What's effective is doing what they did back, before the war. Teach them the very basics of reading, writing, and math. If it's not working, go back to the basics, and nothing is working right now. In the United States or Canada, the only reason why the grades are higher than what they would be is because of immigration. Immigrants who come to this country, Canada, the United States, they don't share these values that leftists do. A kid from Pakistan who's getting 100%, his parents are focused on those very things that we're talking about. They're not worried about, having the L's with the G's, the B's, and the T's. They don't care about things. They don't like those things. The neighborhood we are, it's very minority based in our neighborhood. And every parent I speak to, they don't like what's being taught with the L's and the G's and the B's and the T's and then all this other wokeism. So it just frustrates me to no end. And you can just you can set up powder gag if you ask me anything education based, because I cannot stand what our kids have to be exposed to when they eventually go into the government school system. And after the pandemic, you saw the explosion of homeschooling, private schools, charter schools, because during the pandemic, when the kids were being taught on Zoom, the parents had a peek into what was being taught, and that outraged them to no end. And now they're trying their best to move on. But in an inflationary environment, it's hard to achieve.
The Hayward School District people, they claimed it was helping disadvantaged students learn more. And I can't see how this is a paid-for curriculum going to help disadvantaged students. Graham, what do you think?
Yeah, no, that's complete nonsense. I mean, they throw out the words. The progressive left has a whole bunch of words that they love to use, and that they know that that kind of trigger certain emotions in people, and so they throw out the word, disadvantaged, and they think that people are all automatically going to say, oh well, okay, if it's helping disadvantaged students, then it must be okay. Let's move on. We're happy now. But of course, what this really is all about, and everyone's saying, well, isn't this what a terrible effect this is having on the grades and the actual standard of education these children are getting? Well, look, there's a reason why the progressive left has always been against school choice, and has always been against the idea of parents being able to send their children to the school that they think is best for their children. There's a reason why they're against charter schools. There's a reason why during the pandemic they closed down the schools. It was like pulling teeth to get them to reopen the schools. And the reason is because education, and when I say the word education, I mean like real education, not the crap that these government schools are teaching people now. But a good education is the enemy of the progressive left. They do not want kids to be educated, because educated people and people who have been taught to use their minds and think critically and think for themselves, these people are much harder to control. And what they want is they want total control. They want to churn out generations of sheep, generations of people who have absolutely no idea what's going on and have no interest in finding out what's going on, because they've just been indoctrinated to, repeat certain mantras and think certain thoughts and then do what they're told. And that is the entire point of this progressive left's education, is that the last thing they want is actual education.
I was just going to say they're waiting for the next flag directive to come down. We're switching from Ukraine to Palestine, and then what's the next thing to switch to? Okay, that'll be the thing.
STEM was just, a few months away, and now what's that? That's not progressive.
Let me give you really quickly. I wrote up an article about euthanasia in the United States. There are 19 state legislatures that are going to be taking it up this year. And so this is the next woke thing around the corner. Euthanasia, as it stands in America today, is white privilege, because you have to spend the money on the drugs yourselves. It's not covered by insurance and Medicaid or whatever. And they actually said, this was in an article in the New York Times quoting one of the major proponents, organizations of euthanasia, Black Lives Matter is about being able to have physician-assisted suicide. So that's the next one coming around the bend, just in case you're wondering. The right to kill yourself in a hospital is, people of color are oppressed because they're not allowed to do that.
You should come to Canada, Joe. My God, the medical assisted suicide. It's so
You're way
popular.
ahead
We're
of
knocking
us.
on
You're
doors and
so
asking
far
people
ahead
if
of
they're ready to go.
I support the youth worldwide. I just want to say that.
All right, guys, we got to close this one down. Joe, that might be a great topic next time around, so keep that in your pocket. It is important for every child to feel included, but to take education away in lieu of progressive radicalization means less learning in reading, math, science, and history. Let's not do that in America. President Biden delivered a Super Bowl message to tell the American public something they already know, that the stuff you buy is getting smaller, but still costs the same. Note to corporate America, stop shrinking product packages while keeping prices the same. Never one to take the blame, the man from Delaware wants you to know it's all their fault. Those greedy corporate villains. So why do the major brands participate in this type of behavior? Academic, consumer, and industry studies have typically found that shoppers prefer shrinking sizes to price hikes. Who on panel is dying to get their feet wet? Yes, it is. Andrew Moran, you say Joe Biden was an old man yelling at the heavens in his speech to the masses on Super Bowl Sunday. What are your thoughts as LN's economic guru?
Well, Becky, I've had enough of what they call shrinkflation. It's a ripoff. Some companies are trying to pull a fast one by shrinking the products little by little and hoping you won't notice. Give me a break. So I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time. Now to take the ferry cost a nickel, And in those days, nickels had pictures of bumblebees on them. Give me 5 bees for a quarter, you'd say. But seriously, I mean, this it's so funny because this is a new tactic that the administration is adopting of scapegoating yet again. So this time they're scapegoating shrinkflation. But shrinkflation has been around for so long. It precedes the pandemic. So all of a sudden the White House is complaining about smaller ice cream cartons and smaller soft drink cartons for the same price. But I've spoken to Scott Cosenza about this on his program before, and yet it's been around for years. I mean, just across in my article when I wrote about it, across the pond between 2012 and 2017, the Office of National Statistics found 2,500 examples of shrinkflation. In this inflationary environment, of course, it's going to be exacerbated. You look at Hershey's, for example, they've been reducing the cocoa content because cocoa prices are skyrocketing. They're reaching all-time high. So this is the fall of what happens. But perhaps maybe on a social aspect of it, it's not necessarily a bad thing that there may be 5 fewer chips in a package. We're an obesity epidemic, so why not have a little bit of a fewer chips in your bag? But overall, I mean, shrinkflation, even skimpflation, been around for years. So it's just another tactic from the administration heading into the election.
There's also
Scott,
greed. There's also greedflation, by the way, which is another.
Oh my God,
term
I've heard that 3 times this
that
week
was
from different
invented.
people.
Yeah.
Starts.
Yeah, greedflation apparently is somehow these corporations that have all been established to benefit their neighbors and lift us all and benefit us all, somehow all of a sudden turn to sheer profit as motivation. I don't know what happened in this country because we never had greedflation before. Remember when the corporations weren't greedy just a few years ago and they were just about brother love and trying to give away free stuff? Oh, wait, everybody's about exchanging value for value, except for President Biden, who gets to make his money through the extracted wealth of Americans. I'm beyond outraged, actually, that the President of the United States gets to go on TV with taxpayer money, kind of buoying his messaging, that somehow the hardworking men and women of America and the companies they work for and own are somehow against the American people. They're providing the best value they can for products, and if you don't like them, you don't have to buy them. But the reason why we have shrinkflation is because of Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. and his mandated policies as president of the United States. And then for him to sit there, not stand, because he's not that great standing, but to sit there and basically blame the producers of America for their production and how they manage to sell a good to those of us who are willing to buy it, I'm beyond disgusted.
What I find funny is that Joe Biden, a couple weeks ago, he went on X, or he had a press briefing, whatever the case, and he was saying how he wants corporations to collude to lower prices. But if this were any other time, the FTC would have intervened and say, "What are you talking about? Corporations can't collude because then they're going to create a monopoly." But then if prices stagnate, then they complain how there's not enough competition in the marketplace. But then if they raise prices together, then they're price gouging. It's just a no-win situation in today's economic landscape with this government.
Joe, back to Joe. Do you think the media is covering for inflation as it is? I mean, are they sticking up for this guy? Literally, my cousin said, well, Joe Biden's administration did not cause inflation. It was caused by Walmart. And I made her cry. So anyway, just take over for me before I say too much.
I mean, they're doing it, but I don't think this is anything more alarming than a million other things they've done. Like Andrew said, this is a tactic. I think it's an understandable tactic. I don't want to get into a quarrel with Scott about corporations, the same people who poison us by putting cancer-producing products ingredients in their products, high fructose corn syrup, which costs
Hey, man, buy the one with the sugar instead of the high fructose. That's what I do. Make a choice. Go organic.
Yeah, but
let your purchasers decide.
It's obnoxious. It is obnoxious what to do. When shrinkflation is really about an attempt to manipulate, an attempt to deceive. Is it the worst thing in the world? No. But it's another small hostile act against the consumer. And so to me, Biden using it as a distraction is understandable. It won't work for him because this is the man feverishly trying to get $95 billion more sent overseas while Americans are struggling through the inflation that he has contributed so much to, refuses to secure the border when illegal aliens are in it and becoming an enormous economic burden. So it's really not convincing that he's saying, hey, I want you guys to have more Doritos when, the country's going down in flames because of the things he's doing. Do I think it's a horrible thing that they're using it as a propaganda campaign? No, it's actually an understandable move for an administration that has nothing else to say. The media is helping them, but I don't think it's particularly outrageous. It's just not convincing. And that's, I think, is really the ultimate line. I really don't think he's going to convince, even though Americans are upset when they go to the grocery store, I don't think he's going to get a lot out of this.
Well, Graham, people are starting to say shrinkflation, shrinkflation, shrinkflation. I mean, it just might be the word that's new. I don't think this is new. I don't think President Biden just makes things up, to be sound bites.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's not new. It's not a new thing, and it's really not so much about him making an excuse for inflation, though. This is more about just a distraction. Kind of he's trying to pretend that all of a sudden he's on the side of the little guy again, and I want people to be able to afford groceries. So shrinkflation has not caused inflation. That's a stupid thing to say. I mean, it doesn't. The two things are different things altogether. Inflation is caused by other things, mostly actually monetary policy. And so this whole thing about suddenly complaining about shrinkflation is simply, it's like a distraction. It's like Joe Biden is trying to say, hey, look, re-elect me because look, I'm on your side. I'm on the side of the little guy. I want the corporations to treat us more fairly. But it's a complete distraction, and it's not. The real issue is inflation, and that has got nothing to do with what he's talking about. But I can say one thing. I would be happy if they applied a bit of shrinkflation to government. I mean, I literally would be okay if government spent the same amount of money irresponsibly like it does now, but just kept getting smaller. I'd be okay with that.
Here's the thing, though. Graham mentioned monetary policy. If you're really concerned about shrinkflation, look at the US dollar as a case of shrinkflation. The US dollar, it's supposed to buy you a dollar's worth. Instead, since the inception of the Federal Reserve, the US dollar has lost 90% of its value. Since just the pandemic alone, the US dollar has lost about 20% of its value. If you go by the purchasing power index on the St. Louis Fed data. So that's a shrinkflation that everyone should be outraged by. But of course, that's not something that's politically sexy. Maybe for Scott, but not for the average person.
You mentioned Hershey earlier, Andrew, and it's funny that Milton Hershey actually kind of invented this shrinkflation, but then it wasn't a negative thing. It was so kids could still buy a candy bar for a nickel during the Depression, even though the cost to produce that candy bar went up so substantially. So what he did was he reduced the size of the candy bar and therefore the production cost, but the kids could still get it for a nickel. So this idea that, it's somehow preying upon consumers, I think is just totally wrong. I'm coming back on you, Joe, for that. These people are trying to make a living by providing what the market wants. And if you want to go buy sugar cane treats instead of high fructose corn treats, I support and celebrate your decision. And the only place where that's super easy to do is where we have free markets and people can respond, companies can respond to our choices. It's a miracle of the market, and we'd all be starved to death if we depended on Joe Biden to get a piece of celery from the farm to the market to our table.
All right, boys, I think we need to shut this one down. We're running out of time. If you ask this panel, the most egregious example of shrinkflation is the US dollar, apparently. If the well-meaning senior resident at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue with a horrible memory wants to howl at corporations to stay off his lawn, probably be better served wagging his finger at the Federal Reserve. As Liberty Nation reported, the Justice Department's special counsel, Robert Hur, finished his 300-plus page report on Joe Biden, storing classified docs in all sorts of unsecure places. The president was essentially exonerated due to his inability to understand wrongdoing. His inability to understand wrongdoing. Seriously. Hur also planted this bomb in the middle of explaining himself, citing Biden as, I quote, a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory and diminished faculties in advancing age, end quote. Instead of strategizing that during a busy Super Bowl weekend, their report would go unnoticed, Biden made a hasty address to the nation, and then, believe it or not, took questions from the White House press corps, where he confused the names of the president of Egypt with the president of Mexico, confirming every fear the American public already has regarding his obvious cognitive decline. Talking heads scrambled as the president poured kerosene on his already dumpster fire re-election campaign. Are we having fun yet? Graham seems to advise the Biden bunch to put the shovels down.
Well, yeah, this is a great one. Well, first of all, I'd like to start by saying that you did use the word exonerated. You said kind of something like he was exonerated. I would suggest that he wasn't at all exonerated by that report. The report made it very clear that he mishandled sensitive government information, including even reading some of it to his ghostwriter. But basically, that the report said, he absolutely was guilty of, misconduct. But it's like a defense attorney arguing that his client, a defendant in a murder case, should not be convicted due to diminished responsibility. And this is pure speculation on my part, because obviously I'm not in Robert Hur's head. I have no idea what the man personally thinks about Joe Biden or about anything else. But I can't help thinking that Robert Hur at some point was told by someone higher up in the Justice Department, look, we got to make sure that there's no way this ever comes to the point where criminal charges can be brought against Joe Biden. And I think probably that irked Robert Hur, not necessarily from a personal political point of view, but maybe just it hurt his, integrity as a prosecutor. And he probably thought, okay, so you want me to come up with an excuse why Biden can't be criminally convicted? I'll give you an excuse. He's a frail old man who doesn't know what day of the week it is, and no jury would convict him because they'd feel sorry for him. Now, that's, like I said, that's just me speculating there, but I can't help thinking that there was almost a little bit of spite in that report. But of course, the Justice Department does have a rule as well that, sitting presidents are not criminally charged. So some of the people who are saying, well, this is, it's terrible because Trump has been hauled up, on charges over his classified documents. But Biden isn't. Oh, that double standard. Well, Biden would only ever have been criminally charged with anything after he left office. I mean, he's a sitting president. Obviously, there were going to be no charges brought against him at the moment. The man has a terrible temper, as we all know now.
Read what I said.
I particularly liked, though, that he was feigning outrage over the fact that Mr. Hur included in his report that Joe Biden could not remember the date of his son's death, his son Beau, of course, who died of brain cancer.
How dare he raise that?
And I thought it funny that Joe Biden, when he was speaking about it, he was all just outraged. How dare he bring my son into this? Now, Joe Biden himself has time and time again invoked the name of his son when he is campaigning and when he's speaking about anything. He's done it over and over again. And not only that, but he has on multiple occasions falsely claimed that his son died in Iraq. So I thought that was funny. And in fact, even in the report, it turns out even in the report, it wasn't Hur that suddenly brought up the subject of Beau Biden. It was Joe Biden himself, as he always does. So I thought that was one of the particularly more funny parts of the report.
Well, Andrew, you are the LN staff expert here. We love the Bidenspeak that you come up with. What I'd kind of like to know what he actually did say in his rebuttal speech, because I couldn't figure out where he was going. He was just all over the place.
what Graham just made a great point when President Biden was talking about his son Beau. He said that Robert Hur asked him about it, but the report says that he never asked about it, and further reports close to the situation confirm, according to Fox News anyway, that Hur, never brought up Beau Biden at all. It was Joe Biden who did it. He invoked him yet again, claimed that he died in Iraq, even though that never happened. But anyway, so all the other things too, you mentioned that press conference. One of them was, of course, mixing up Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and claim that he's the president of Mexico. So that's another thing. The entire point of that press conference after that Hur report was to display how strong, resolute, and on top of things Joe Biden is. But of course, it completely backfired because it confirmed what Hur was explaining. This is a frail old man who's he has a terrible memory and he can't handle thinking on the spot. Heck, even when he has a teleprompter in front of him, he can't do it. He says things like "bad cath care" or "chewing out no pressure" or "you don't get better than women," things like that. So it just the press conference was a complete terrible idea on the part of the administration.
I could not find a single consonant in it, and I really had to turn it off. I'm going to go to Joe on this one. Can you maybe tell us how or where the country of Mexico is and how Kamala Harris would explain that?
Mexico, well, it is a burgeoning continent. That's a Seinfeld joke that maybe Andrew will get. There's layers to that joke, if you know. I think Kamala is actually the ace card for Joe Biden here, because as much as you criticize him, look who would be taking his place if he steps down. Kellyanne Fitzpatrick, or Kellyanne Conway, excuse me, I'm showing my age, said that just the other day. She's Joe Biden's greatest weapon because as horrible as he is, she's the one who's next in line. But this was a disaster for the Biden administration. I think, just to follow on what Graham was saying, they expect just, Merrick Garland, Justice Department investigations to be just a show, just a theater. We know the serious charges are for Donald Trump, but we got to pretend that it's even-handed. And then Hur threw this, total grenade into the nest that they weren't expecting. And I really think it was like Biden feeling he was betrayed. It's like, no, this isn't the way the game's supposed to be played. So there is bitterness there. I think Hur didn't want to play the game. I think Graham's right about that. And Biden thought the game was being played. It just shows again how orchestrated and scripted everything about this administration is. And it's not holding up. It's not holding up to the American people. It's hard for it to hold up when the main person involved in the play can't read the script, can't read his lines. So, it's all turning bad. And the person who I think is looking great for all this is Gavin Newsom. I wrote about it over a year ago, I believe. This is what he's always wanted. He didn't want to run for president. He wants to be asked to run for president, asked to come in to shine light on his white Charger, and it's all setting up for him. Gavin Newsom is the big winner here. He so desperately wants to be asked, come save us, come be our nominee. And you know what? I think everything is playing out for him perfectly. And, Kamala Harris's mere presence just helps him as it helps Biden. It's just a train wreck in that White House right now.
Here's one thing that really drove me crazy. I've been around the horn on a lot of different kinds of state, local, national, presidential campaigns. And when news drops late in the week, like the Hur report kind of dropped a little bit late in the week, and you have a Super Bowl coming up, you just shut up and let something else take over the news cycle. And I could not understand, and it keeps going and going and going, and everybody's talking about it, and it's all from his administration. I mean, Scott, do you think he has any staffers that are clued in on, political PR?
It's shocking that they didn't wait for later in the week to drop it and then just not say anything about it. But, you never know really who's pulling the levers over there, because clearly, Biden isn't the one who's doing it by himself. Really no president does it by himself, with the exception of maybe Trump. And I don't mean that as a compliment. I just mean it as, he was alone in how he seemed to act on these things unilaterally. But that turned back on the press conference, okay, to take questions and then come back.
Your judgment.
Boy, you could just see, they're just cringing, right? Like, oh my God, what is this going to do? And of course, that just accrues to scariness about Joe Biden's mental capacity, right? Like, if he's not totally scripted, what is going to happen? That's where the danger is for them politically. I think that the best speculation, Graham got into some speculation, so I'll dip my toe in because it's so much fun, that I've heard, and I heard it for the first time today, is that the speculation is that the Obama camp, having fully now soured on Biden's reelection, is doing a campaign of embarrassment because they can't force him out, so they have to get him to want to leave, and they're going to do that by basically making everybody think that he's President Poopy Pants as a legacy instead of the guy who turned the country around after COVID or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to say, that we have a conspiracy theorist on panel, and it kind of looks like they're just letting him hang himself.
Well, I would just say, excuse me, Andrew, I just want to get on the record. I don't think it's going to accrue to Gavin Newsom's benefit like Joe does, by the way. I'm fascinated to see how it will, just because I don't think a cisgendered white male is going to be their, they're going to let themselves pick that. It's got to be
we need a color. We need a different color.
Yeah.
Just say it. All right. Well,
I'll tell you, Scott, that you shouldn't complain about my complexion. Is
that your Gavin Newsom?
Yes, that's my guy.
I don't know who it was, but last show, Andrew promised he wouldn't do any more of these impressions, and yet here we are. So
Scott brought it out.
I'm closing this puppet down. I'm gonna close it with the words of Liberty Nation senior political analyst Tim Donner. Quote: Biden's mental fitness is no longer amusing. If it ever was, it has become an issue beyond politics. Average Americans reading just the headlines in pro-Biden media will surely be alarmed at the specter of a man with diminished mental faculties controlling the nuclear football. Thanks, panel. Back by popular demand, it's just for fun. We're highlighting the trivia stylings of Liberty Nation's own Kirsten Brooker, who is the author of LN's wildly popular weekly trivia contest. Today, we'll test our author's knowledge. Hopefully you've all been paying attention. Andrew, don't cheat.
No cheat.
Uh-oh. And it won't be bad because I'm going to give you multiple choice answers from which to choose. So look alive, panel. I mean, really, look alive. If we're not having fun, our audience is not having fun.
You're right. When you're right, you're right. You're right.
Yes.
Serious. I warned you. I even freaking warned you. All right. First question. In fact, I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to call on you, and you're going to pick a question.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Let's start with Mr. Beautiful Baritone on the Bay.
Who?
Scott Senza.
Number one.
Thousands of Nevada voters are complaining they were not adequately informed that Donald Trump, A, would be on the caucus ballot, but not the primary. B, would be on the primary ballot, but not the caucus.
You can get the baby out of here.
C, would not appear on either.
It has to be Nevada.
The first was the primary, but not the ballot, and the second was the ballot, but not the primary.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The caucus. He was on the caucus, so that's my choice. That's my belief.
Yes. Ding ding.
Okay.
Scott gets one. Keep your own score because I'm not gonna bother with that. Okay.
Andrew's at 5 already in that case.
Yeah, the actual answer is.
Well, I'm not gonna call on Andrew.
Caucus ballot, but not on the primary. Read confusion reigns. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's
Okay, Joe.
37.
Did you say 37 or 7?
Yeah, you give me 7, I guess.
Is that like your Bennett lucky betting number? Gaza is facing additional difficulties due to the blank
Them's fighting ways.
that are participating in violent acts against them. A, firefighters. B, relief workers. C, police officers.
gotta be kidding me.
Jeez, the America First guy has to get the question about the topic he just doesn't care about. Let's keep the money here, please. I'll go with B, but I have no idea. B?
B, relief workers, and you are correct.
Yeah,
Just
Joe.
guess. That was a
Like it.
guess.
Ding, 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 ding.
Smoking Joe Schaefer.
I have no idea what the right answer was.
All right, Graham, you're up.
I'll take 3.
Number 3. Soon as I find number 3.
3.
On Saturday, January 27th, a group of illegal immigrants attacked a couple of blank who asked them to leave the area. Was it A, business owners?
Hell.
B, security officers? Or C, police officers?
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, good grief.
I know this one too, I think.
I am
I know
going.
it too.
I'm going to say, and I think it was the
Get over there!
the first answer. I'm going to say business owners.
What is it, Scott?
baby.
Or
It's police officers.
The police.
It is police officers. Ding, ding, ding,
Popo.
ding.
When in doubt, go with the police being attacked because it's happening way too often.
He's right, you know.
Yay. See, is there anybody? I think we've gotten to. Is there any? Oh, Andrew, you're up.
No, God, please, no, 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 no.
Cheater.
300, 800 billion, trillion, billion dollars. I mean, 1.8 billion. I mean, 1.7 trillion. No, I mean, 1.8 billion.
Pick a number.
Oh, I'm sorry. Question number 2. FBI Director Christopher. I'm sorry. That's not the question.
Joe, out of the kindness of your heart,
No.
ask Andrew something that he may not have been paying attention to that maybe you're writing about. Because cheater, pumpkin eater has got to stop.
I've asked a question, and I haven't written about it, but who just bought one of the leading owners of radio stations in America? A prominent name who's frequently in the news bought Odyssey. They own over 200 radio stations in America.
More Soros.
Is it George Soros? Yeah, oh, it is. Yes, you got it right.
Okay.
You know what else happened in
He's
big
on
Soros
TikTok
news this week?
24/7. I can't beat that.
On Valentine's
right.
Day, George Soros' son, Alex, the heir apparent, revealed his romantic affair with none other than Huma Abedin in a Parisian cafe and publicly outed themselves as a couple.
Woo! Okay, I'm going to ask another question, and this is a free-for-all. So hopefully I'll read my article or Tim's best article ever on Nevada. To be on the Nevada GOP caucus slip, and no, Andrew, you've already read this, candidates must either host a fundraiser for the party or
You know, it's exciting.
donate to charity of the party's choice, pay $55,000 to the party, and a high-profile dinner with the state executives of the party.
Well, Lottie frickin' dog!
Look.
Oh, see, this is a. We got to choose one of those things that they got to do.
Yeah, just jump on in there.
The idea that
Life finds a way.
Look, you can't cheat, Andrew. Stop cheating.
None of these candidates are this well in Nevada.
Do what?
I was making a reference to
That's such a weird. I can't even remember what some of the choices are. So that's
right.
very.
Here,
I'm going to say.
I'll read those again for those who aren't paying attention.
Damn!
Donate to a charity of their choice. Pay $55,000. Attend a high-profile dinner with state party executives.
Lottie frickin' dog!
To prove that I didn't.
I'm going to say the charity one.
I'm going to say the charity one just to prove I didn't cheat.
Anybody else?
I'm sure that it's not the charity one. How about
You
that?
are correct. What is it?
Have to hang out with the state officials. That sounds
50
like
grand.
They have to pay $55,000. Who says politics is cheap?
Oh, yeah, I suppose that was that was the predictable answer that I didn't want to go for it.
I knew it!
But I mean, after all, unfortunately, politics is always about the money. So it's
Okay.
I should have known that would have been the answer, really.
It's always about the money. It's an exorbitant amount of money, but
Graham,
still.
that was my key to success on that question. Whenever you have the choice to understand it, you go for the most base and craven motivation possible, which is why we have to
That's
restrict
usually
these
it.
people's access to power over our lives.
Hallelujah.
That's the whole thing. Conservative, liberal, Democrat, or Republican, they're always all about themselves. Power and money, we got to keep it for ourselves.
Hallelujah.
I think I just
we
learned a
haven't
lesson
done yet.
about Occam's razor there. The simplest answer is usually always the right one.
Correct.
All right, I got one more for you guys, and this is a blurt. And I don't even think I should have to list these off. So you should know this.
Don't screw it up.
Ready? Currently, 2 swing states where Donald Trump and Joe Biden are basically tied in the polls are. Deer
Which
in
2
headlights.
swing states are at a dead heat? Is that the question?
What 2 swing states right now are a dead heat with Biden and Trump?
I'll say
gonna
Wisconsin.
Is it one of the Michigan?
I was going to say, my choices for the 2 are Michigan and Pennsylvania.
sounds right.
Yep. Ding, ding, ding. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
But who
Just
gets
saying.
that point? Do I get 1 point or does Graham get both of them?
Yeah.
Okay, interrupt. I believe the answer is Wisconsin and Pennsylvania.
Uh-huh.
Yes, from the voice of reason behind the scenes, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin is the answer. And that pretty much wraps it up today. And guys, you got to get fun. If you're not fun, nobody else is having fun. And I don't want to be the only one having fun. Do you understand? Can we just all be fun next time? Please. Anyway. Well, that's all she wrote, folks. If you ever want to play more
Whoa! That's not all she wrote. Where's my trophy? Do I get like a certificate suitable for framing?
You don't think I am keeping points
Oh.
and I'm bringing it to the next gathering? You will get a Burger King crown or something else.
Oh,
I don't know.
thank you
You'll
for
get
that.
something.
I'll
How about
hold
maybe
you
some
to it.
Epsom salts? How about Epsom salts for life?
Fantastic.
Yeah, there we go.
Doc Cosenza wins this marvelous package of multivitamins, keeps you safe,
Okay, now
satisfied,
you guys are gonna
healthy,
get
and great
fun?
at any time of the weather.
Swear to God. Like, dear Lord, what about you people? Okay, well, that is all she wrote. Now we really got to go. But if you want to play more trivia news of the week, visit www.libertynation.com. Look for Test Your Knowledge. And high five to Kirsten Brooker for writing a pretty popular segment for our lovely libertynation.com. Good night. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 show and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. And it's an all new 24/7 channel. So check us out. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are LibertyNation.com.